Ladies and gents, fans and sponsors, welcome to Rochdale Hornets Club webinar. Just going to go through a few house rules and let you know how the webinar is going to function. Just let you know we are broadcasting live on Facebook as well. So if you lose connection and what have you, you can go straight to our social media platform and pick up the link there as well. You'll all be muted on the call on the webinar at the moment. That's just to help us flow through the information and let our panelists speak clearly so everybody can enjoy the next hour or so with us. As part of that, you are still able to engage with us. There's a Q&A section. So if you wish to ask a question, you can type it into the Q&A box and a member of the team can get back to you. That's not a problem. If you have a question that you would prefer to direct to one of the panelists based on the topic that they're discussing, if you just hold that question until the end of their presentation, put your hand up digitally. So there's a feature and a function where you can raise your hand and tech support will bring you in at the end of that relevant section and you can ask that question directly to the panelist and have it answered. It should go fairly seamless. Which will try and get around everybody's questions. I think that's massively important. And most of all, we really hope that you enjoy our engaging session this evening. And without further ado, I'll introduce you to our panelists. So on the webinar, we have incoming chairman, Andy Maisie. We have directors, Tony Sheridan, Richard Hayes, and we have our assistant coach with us, Craig Faramond. Just unfortunately, Matt Callan wasn't able to join us this evening, but the chairman will go through some of the bits and pieces as to why that is. And without further ado, again, I will hand you over to the chairman, Mr. Andy Maisie, for our club update. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, and good evening, everybody. Thank you to everybody who's taken time to sign up and join us tonight. And that's extended, obviously, to those watching live on Facebook. Obviously, COVID-19 wasn't something any of us ever saw coming around this year in 2020. So I guess that's the place to start and discuss that impact and obviously, the impact on what we've had to do to change our thinking and planning around the global pandemic. One key thing to note, I think, from the outset is the incoming board, Tony, Peter, Paul Ormerod, Richard and myself, we've taken the opportunity to just enforce our support for the club, and we'd like everybody to understand that we're fully behind the club and nothing changes in that respect. So we're here and we're here for the long term, and although this is not something we anticipated and wanted, shall we say, but it's certainly something that hasn't changed our commitment and our outlook on the club. In terms of changes, obviously the initial thing would be to state the obvious. We've no matches right now, so obviously there's no match day income. In fact, there's no income really or any revenue of any note other than the central distributions at the moment. So what we had to do, obviously, as soon as this thing became apparent as to what was going to be likely happening with COVID-19, we had to act quickly and make some decisive actions. And the measures we put in very early were to reduce the overheads as best we could, reduce the club's cost base, and basically put in some measures to protect the club for whatever the outcome of COVID-19 might be. As part of the lockdown, obviously the stadium is closed. Effectively, nobody can go out, can we? So we can't attend our sort of offices at the stadium. So unfortunately, we had to make a decision to utilise the government's furlough scheme. And with that, obviously, our full-time chief executive, Steve, who was very understanding, he had to be, temporarily engaged on the furlough scheme. Two reasons for that: one, to protect his job and his position, and the other one was to protect the club. Effectively, with that in mind, the government furlough scheme also was utilised with Matt. So hence the reason Matt's not unable to join us tonight. He's unable to work at the moment for the club. So I'm sure he's sat at home, hopefully watching us, and he's us in spirit. But again, just to thank those two guys for buying into the situation and what we needed to do to protect the club and do what we need to do to get through. In respect of keeping the players fit in Matt's absence, Miles Greenwood and Craig, who will join us shortly and speak about what's going on that side of things, they've been working on that. So I won't go into too much detail. I'll leave that to Craig. But I'd just like to also, we need to discuss the wider position with the sport, I think. So with that in mind, I'd like to place on record our thanks and respect to the RFL, whose communication and leadership has been absolutely excellent, I've got to say. It's been widely documented. A lot of people within the game have commented on that, and I can only say that, in times of trouble, the governing body have really stepped up to the plate for us as stakeholders. And so, yeah, hopefully if anybody's watching tonight, they'll listen to what we've got to say, and hopefully the thanks reaches the people who would like it to reach. I think also recently, in recent days, it's been reported about the loan that they've managed to secure. Again, another example of the great work that they've been doing during this crisis. So again, why it is a loan and why it's going to be repayable. It's important that funding has been secured, because it's all about, the sport as a whole coming out of the other end of this crisis. And, the sport is the important thing, whether that be at Super League level, Championship, League One, or right down the pyramid, down to Championship and down to the community game and grassroots. It's important that come the end of this crisis, we're all going to be around to carry on and hopefully, take the sport forward. As I've said, we've the relationships from the outset of us getting involved, we've tried to work really hard, and relationships with the RFL are in a good place. There's a mutual respect between the governing body and our club. Key relationships with the council. I'd like to go on record of thanking the council for the support. That's been imperative in the build-up to the season as we were getting to grips with things, and also since the COVID-19 situation, there's been some real positive and strong support from the council and the leadership. So I'd like to again just put on record some thank yous, if we may. Talking about, again, going back to the wider game, we continue into, I'm sure there'll be questions about when we're going to get going and what the latest position is. I'd just like to assure people that we're continuing to work closely with the governing body and other stakeholders and clubs. And we're all working together at this point in time on various different scenarios, models and plans to, hopefully when it's safe and when we're in a position to restart, whether that, be in 6-8 weeks time, or if it's worst case scenario next year, we all want to be in as stronger position as possible and ready to hit the ground running again. So yeah, just the key point in that one is that, at this moment in time, while we've not got any major groundbreaking updates, there are ongoing conversations, ongoing meetings, and various different plans and scenarios are being presented for our comment and thoughts. And also, we're presenting our ideas and filling in surveys and generally talking over, the chewing over the fat that can potentially lead to a strong outcome for us all as a sport. I think what is key, as we talk about, the club, and we're quite happy to answer any questions specific to any areas of the club tonight. But I think, again, I just want to reassure everybody that while it's a difficult situation and not something any of us wanted, we've rolled up the sleeves. We're all ready to, keep the ship going in the right direction. And just, I think Tony will talk further down in the presentation about the importance, because we've all got a role to play in that. And Tony will talk through some of the initiatives and some of the things whereby we can all contribute to the fight back, if you like, because I think it's fair to say that it's going to be it's one that will need a big team effort. We always knew it was going to be a collective, but now more than ever, it's time that we really had to, we have to really rally and come together on it. So what I've done, I've tried to keep it a bit of an overview. I'm happy to accept any questions on this particular section, but what I'd like to do is move into the player update now and let Craig talk to you about what the guys are doing at the moment.
All right, thanks, Andy. As Andy said, Matt couldn't be with us tonight. But just want to touch on a little bit on the playing squad, and then an update on the injury situation, and then a little bit what we've been doing as a squad to keep the guys motivated and the competitive edge. Obviously, in regards to the playing squad, we was really pleased with how the pre-season went. Matt, myself, Miles, the rest of the coaching staff was really pleased with our recruitment. Was a little bit behind the 8 ball, but we managed to get the players in we wanted to get in, and all lads started buying into what we wanted to do. We had some good results, especially in the cup and in our first league game, so we was really happy with that. Along the way, we did pick up a few injuries, so I'll give you a bit of an update on them. Sean Ainscore, if you can remember back to the game against the Army, he had a really bad injury to his ankle. I've just spoke to him today. He's all good. He's fit. He's carrying out his rehab program from home, set by the physios, and he's good to go. Sam Freeman, who I think you'll all agree, started the season really well. We managed to get him in for groin surgery, obviously with the lockdown. And again, I've spoke to Sam. He's running, he's fit, he's well, he's doing his program from home. He's managed to lift it now to doing weights at home. So again, he's good to go. A player you've not really seen this year is Jimmy Connaughton. Jimmy got injured in pre-season with his shoulder, but again, he's doing his rehab program at home. And he's good to go. Same with Callum Ogden. He had a shoulder injury which required surgery. Oggy actually has been running out of us the last few days, and he's good to go. He's really fit. And lastly, with our captain Sean Penkovic, as you know, Penke, we need to wrap him in cotton wool. He got a knee injury, picked up against York Acorn, then he sustained a little bit more against the Army. He muscled on against Keighley, but we've managed to, obviously with the break now, he's managed to do his rehab at home, and we can look after him. I know Matt, our physio, has been doing a lot of one-to-one stuff with him as well. A little bit what we've been doing as a squad. As I say, this COVID-19 came out of nowhere. So as a coaching group, we got together, myself, Matt and Miles, obviously online, what could we do? We talked about daily challenges, weekly challenges, just basically keeping the guys engaged. And with the help of Andy and Steve, we kind of came up with some little initiatives, little incentives, and we've done a 5K challenge. So basically it was the quickest time in the forwards, in the backs, in the half backs, and obviously the coaching staff took part in that. And the losers, they had a forfeit, which was a bit of fun. We've seen some naked songs and naked stories. So that was fun. Last week was our bike ride, as far as you can go in an hour. And this Friday, because Penke, our captain, won the challenge, he got to decide this week's challenge, and this week is fancy dress in aid of VEDA. So we've got a fancy dress party online on Friday. Some other things to be going on with. Miles, conditioner, he's doing great work behind the scenes. He's done a lot of individual programs for the players, weights, as I say, rehab for the injured boys, conditioning for the forwards, conditioning for us and the coaching staff as well. We've been getting mucked in. So yeah, we've just tried to keep everyone's morale going, really. We've faced a few challenges in regards to facilities and equipment. Well, I think it was just important to keep the banter going in the group and keep the morale going with the competitive edge. The challenge ahead really is, if we do come back, we need to re-engage the boys, re-engage the fitness levels, and reset our goals. The goals we had, we wasn't really vocal about them. We kept them internally. The boys knew and the coaching staff knew, and obviously, certain members of the board knew our goals, but we wanted to keep them in-house, and we just got to reset them goals and keep the lads focused as well. That kind of helps really with the training facilities we've got down at Otwood. I think we're in a really strong position for when we do go back into it. We've got the right facilities, we've got the 4G pitches, we've got the track nearby, we've got the weights. So I think once we get the nod to go back into it, we'll be ready to go. I think just a little short mini pre-season, we're ready to go with the fitness levels we've managed to maintain during the lockdown. So I think from our side, I think the boys are just chomping at the bit and ready to go. We've managed to get, as I said, the injured players back where we wanted to be. It's just maybe a short period of time to get them match fit. But it's just important for us really as a coaching group just to keep them together and keep the morale going. I mean, we've had a few good news stories. Some of the players, obviously the players' misses, we've had a few births, which has been good. We've kept the groups going that way. Jamie Tracer, his missus gave birth to a little girl. So congratulations to them. And yeah, there's been a few other good news stories come out of it. So it's not all been doom and gloom, but like I said, we're just ready to get back on the training field now.
Brilliant. Thanks, Craig. Great insight that into what's going on at the moment on the playing side. I think it dovetails nicely as well when you touch on facilities to just mention the Hotwood facility and also the partnership with the college. Obviously, that is in its infancy. We had some really positive conversations around the turn of the new year with Hotwood, and that's a very strategic partnership in our eyes and the eyes of the college as well, because it's all about creating the future stars that can come through the college, come through that player pathway that we're looking to develop. So we've spoken a lot about since we've got involved at Rochdale about the building blocks and some of the key things that we've got in place at Rochdale that make it special, and absolutely the Hotwood facility and everything Craig touches on there. It's not only a great facility for the current players to use, but when you talk about recruiting for the future and bringing players into the club, to be able to, the advantage to be able to show them around facilities like that, have the stadium that we've got, the staff and the environment that we've got, it's just a real selling point for the club. When we've spoken about Toronto, obviously we've been quoted a few times as saying it's more than just a dual reg partnership. We believe it is, because there's a willingness between ourselves, Toronto, and the college again at Hotwood to develop something that's not only special but pretty unique in rugby league. Again, obviously Matt would be the best person to be bringing in right now. Unfortunately, we can't do that. He's unable to work at the college and for ourselves at the moment. But he's actually, he's based there day to day in his day-to-day job. He coaches the academy team down there. So there's something really special in terms of player development that we can create, and we are creating, I should say. The future, my view and the view of the board and everybody connected is that the next Matty Ashton and talent coming out of this town absolutely has to be wearing a Rochdale shirt and not going anywhere else. So it's very important that the pathways in place to ensure not just at the academy age, but the development strategy that we've got will extend down to, we'll get down to the under 12s and 14s, and Matt's going to be integral in the England talent pathway and the pathway leading to those people and youngsters coming through the college, coming into the Cat 3 academy. And ultimately, when we say it's unique, it gives them a unique opportunity to be able to play Cat 3 academy rugby, move into either League One or Championship with Rochdale Hornets. And for the very elite players, they can actually move into Super League with Toronto. So it is quite unique, because I don't think any other club in the game can offer a facility and a pathway whereby you can experience all levels of the game. So yeah, obviously speaking on the academy, what we're going to do is obviously you'll see in the slides just a little bit of detail about the Hotwood Hall College Rugby Academy team. And what we will do at some point in the future is, I think it's newsworthy and worthy of a full presentation and meeting. So, I won't drone on too long about that. Just to say really that obviously having Matt there full time, having Miles Greenwood's already based there, facilities are first class. There's been a real openness and willingness from Toronto to engage as well. So, there's opportunity to use their profile and their star players to really engage the community and get the best talent, get the best talent wanting to come into our system and structure. And that's the emphasis for us is all about very much the future, the future stars and the future talent coming out of Rochdale and the wider borough and community being fed into a system whereby they can wear that shirt of ours. So on the back of that, really, I think hopefully some of the detail that you're viewing right now is giving some further information. But as I say, we will go into more detail further down the track, and I think we can move on then to the next section.
Andy, I've just got a few questions here from one or two fans via the Facebook. I wonder if you could pick them up.
Absolutely, yeah.
From Alan Colclough, just asking what's happening with the pitch, Andy. Can you give us an update on that?
Yes, good evening, Alan. In terms of the pitch, obviously, the football club are in a similar position to ourselves. So the planning and the things that they had planned to do with the pitch, is obviously, the goalposts have changed. So they're looking at their options right now. Obviously, the financial situation will be being reviewed, and there's other things to bear into account. Obviously, the uncertainty around whether they're going to restart or not is playing a part in that. So I think the answer is that at this moment in time, we're waiting really on decisions and an update from the football club, and then from that point we'll understand exactly what the maintenance cycle will look like, and when the pitch will be available, and the knock-on effects it may or may not have for our season if we do indeed restart.
Another question, Andy, and thank you for that one. Sandy asks, how long would you ideally like to have before going back into play? 1 week, 3 week? What's enough to get the lads ready before the season restarts?
I think Craig touched on that in his session. Obviously, they've managed to look after the guys, and they've ticked over really well. So I don't know whether Craig wants to come in on that briefly and just give his view on it. But I think they are in a reasonable condition from all the reports I'm seeing.
Yeah, mate, I think just on that, and I reckon 3 week. I mean, 3 week in sense. We're talking at the moment. We're doing like 2 or 3 sessions a week. It's like going into a first game of the season. You're always going to have that, game day fitness. But I, 3 weeks of work with Miles and myself and Matt. It's a little touch up on the skills side, but in regards to the fitness, I think the boys are, pretty much there.
That's great.
Thanks, Greg. Andy, another question. Ian Coop's on the line, so just going to buzz him through. Ian, you should be able to field your question now to Andy and the team.
Hello there. Hi.
Good evening, Ian.
Hi, Andy. Andy, if we get back and we're behind closed doors, what would the possibility of having some sort of streaming to the fans, and what would the financial impact be of that as well? Because I think most people would be quite happy to chip in to get some sort of view of what's happening.
Yeah, definitely. I think those are, when I speak about the conversations that are ongoing with the RFL, there are discussions at the moment around, closed, if and when getting back this year, it does look like most likely that it would be behind closed doors. So conversations around the broadcast and screening of those fixtures are taking place. Logistics and such and costs have all got to be factored in, because obviously the impact of having no crowd is one thing, but the impact of potentially having to pay for the technology and equipment that would maybe be involved in streaming games, it needs to be factored as well. But I think the important thing, Ian, is that we are discussing all possibilities, options, and looking at everything. No stone unturned, really, in terms of getting the game back and in front of our supporters as quickly as we can.
I don't know. Can I ask another question? Well,
by all means, yeah. Fire away.
Yeah. I don't know if it's the right opportune time, this, or whether we're going to have another session after. On the current squad, Andy, are there any other guys who are on a 2-year contract, or is everybody on a 1-year deal?
At the moment, we've, without going into too much detail on contracts, as
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah.
clubs might be watching at the moment, so I won't name any names. But we don't, because of the situation we started and the position we started from this year, we don't have any players on long-term contracts. So we have got a couple of guys who've got options for a further year, but in the main, most of the players are contracted just for this season at the moment. But we are, obviously, as you know, we're very proactive in our approach to all aspects of the club. So we are, we are going to begin talks to start securing people as soon as we know what we're going to be ultimately doing and when we can restart.
Okay, just on that subject, just finally on this, the player thing, are any of, I don't expect you to name names on this actually, are any of our players got a get out clause in their contracts if a club from a higher division came to pick them up? I think we all know the guys we're talking about.
There's none with a clause in the contract to that anyone from a higher division could come along and take. No.
Okay,
thank you. That's the answer.
yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, thank you very much indeed.
No problem at all, Ian. Speak soon.
And Andy, just one last question on this section via Facebook from one of our season ticket holders, Kev Parr. Just wants to know, is there a cut-off date for the latest for the season to resume like there is in football? Are we likely to know earlier rather than later?
There isn't a date at the moment, no. I mean, obviously we are pushing the Rugby Football League, who are in turn pushing the government to understand, what the bounce back's going to be, and I assume how quickly we can come out of lockdown. But at the moment, there's no date. We're reviewing things. We're on another call with the RFL next week, where we're hoping there may be some further information. But there's no date set in stone in any regards, really. All I can say is that we're as keen as the supporters are to understand what the outcomes are going to be, so we can start planning to move forward.
Thanks, Andy. Just hand you over to Tony.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm going to take everybody through some of the initiatives and around the commercial aspects of the club. And I just want to pull ourselves back to some of the original conversations and presentations we had as an incoming board, even prior to us going through the vote and those such things. We spoke about sustainability, and we always said we wanted to come into the club to make sure we can survive any eventuality that was ahead of us. At that time, it was around potential renegotiation of TV deals and such things, and really shoring the club up to make sure that we could progress and move forward to whatever happened in that circumstance. And the way we came and to finance the club was to ensure that we could do the best possible to do that. Obviously, what's been thrown ahead of all that is the unfortunate circumstances that we all know about. But that sustainability piece is still important. And because of that, I know Steve, at the early stages of the situation, started to put in place initiatives to try and ensure we can continue support financially through this, what is in effect, crisis, to make sure that when we do get through this, we're in a position that we're still strong, and the plan is still as it was. And as Andy and Craig have said, from a playing perspective, making sure we've got a club to go forward into. So I think you've heard already that that's all positive, but what we need to do is ensure that we do continue to have a flow of funds through the club when we haven't got any games. At the moment we're running down a couple of £1,000 for every week that we're actually doing nothing. And at the moment we're in a good position as a club. But the initiatives we see on the screen here have been really important. So already, it's been fantastic. We've had over 120 direct dispatches pledged to the club through the lottery. And so that started really well. At Squad Builder, I think there's already commitments to some £400 a month of direct debits also. So again, that's a really strong initial support. So we need that to be wider and further. So anybody that knows anybody that hasn't or might want to, even this difficult time, even if it's a couple of pounds a month pledge, it really does help to support and underpin what we're trying to achieve. But thanks to all those that have done so thus far, because again, through this time, I'm sure disposable ink isn't something that's readily available, so it is very much appreciated by the club. On the other side, we've got the auction. The team have done a really good job of putting a fantastic auction together. If you've not seen it, go on to the club website. Some fantastic Hornets aspects there to be a day with the directors and those reprobates to understand what happens behind the club, to a really interesting one, which is to actually own a really piece of rarity in history, which is an official winners medal from the 2016 game with Toulouse. The club gets allocated some, and they've decided to put one forward. So again, these aren't something you can buy, and to have that available on the auction, I think, is fantastic for any supporter, because I'm sure there's not going to be any of those coming available, if you like. So I do suggest, if you haven't, go there. Some brilliant stuff, not just normal signed memorabilia, but some experience aspects as well, which I think are some good fun. Also there you'll see the club shop. I know we can't be there at Spotland, but if you can engage, the summer months are coming, whether we're in our gardens or out. So you can still wear the Hornets t-shirts and the shirts, and there's some good stocks there. Well supported by the team at Icon as well. That's the first for this year to get an online proposition for the club. So again, if we can support that, fantastic. And then really a big step forward in terms of really truly understanding some of the building blocks that we saw when we come into the club as a board, and that's our foundation and community activity. Myself and Rick we're very fortunate to be involved in one of the sessions earlier this month, and actually become trustees of the foundation as board representatives. And what I really see is the fantastic work that's been done in the last 12 months, and moreover what's being done at the moment to put absolute solid foundation to the foundation, to do two big principles. One, really engage the community in all ways possible, and that's from that youth engagement that feeds through to what we discussed earlier into Hopwood, and in effect getting players onto our pitch, whether it be through our disability teams, ladies teams, or the first teams, and also fans in the stands. We know that's been a challenge for the club, and I see there's a joined up aspect there to really build on what's happened already, the new initiatives in place with the likes of the partnership with Hotwood and Toronto, plus the widening engagement with the commercial arena. and that, I think, is probably one of the most exciting things. And there was the reason personally I wanted to get involved with the club, and that's progressing at a rate of knots even through this period now. So we'll come out of this period with a strong vision and direction to where that's going to go. And then the last bit really is not a cry for help, but from a commercial activity. One of the things that we really want to do is, I think you've all seen now, this club's been seen in a very different light, and Richard will come on to some of the reasons that is, from a setting the awareness levels into a different perspective. But we're really starting to see engagement from the corporate community, not just within Rochdale, but wider, because they're interested in what we're doing. What we would ask, if anybody is aware of companies that may be wanting to be interested, this is not just about sponsoring a match and such things. It's about wanting to be engaged, what we might be doing through our community initiatives, and really giving something back to the community. Is not just about giving something to the rugby club. Reach out to the club, maybe pass me contact details to Steve and team, even they're able to forward emails, and we can follow those up, because I think that's going to be really important, that we solidify as much of 2021 as possible now. And we're pleased to report as well that quite a number of the sponsors have committed that whatever happens this season, their money that's spent is spent. They're not going to be asking for money back and those sorts of things. And that's again showing fantastic support from those sponsors. There's a few more to talk to, but at the moment, again, absolutely, 100% commitment to what the club's trying to achieve and do. So we thank all those sponsors, and we will name check those specifically through the social channels that to reinforce their commitments to the club. So again, just the last word is that word sustainability. It's one I promised at the beginning we won't let go. Everything we're trying to do here is to ensure that whatever happens, not only we get through this, which we will, and we're all as a collective and going to ensure that's the case, and then still well positioned to hit any and jump over any hurdles that may come with those other scenarios towards the end of the 2021 season. So thanks for that, and again, thank you for continued support, and don't forget the auction on the website. Thanks.
Cheers, Tony.
Just pause there if there are any questions for Tony at all. No. We'll introduce our next panelist, Richard, and he'll go through the topic displayed on the screens now for you all.
Hi, thanks everyone. Cheers. So yeah, just to kick us off, what I wanted to do really is just cover 3 points. Just quick update on the progress so far, what to expect from the media team, particularly during these tough times, and then what everyone can do to help the team. And take this opportunity as well to just thank every one of the media team who are doing a fantastic job. Volunteers giving up the spare time to sort of promote the club. So can't thank them enough. And I think we're starting to see some of the results of that hard work as well. You can see there from that first stat, even though we're not playing the game at the moment, it's very difficult to do year-on-year comparisons. But if we look at the first 2 months of the year, there's a huge improvement on not only impressions but on the number of visits that we're getting on our social channels, and that also is going through to the website as well. We're seeing increases in traffic across the board on the website as well. In terms of when we got together at the beginning of the year, our objectives really were to improve the coverage that the club was getting across the board. I think there's a lot of comments around Rochdale Hornets probably not getting as much coverage as what it maybe deserved over the last couple of years. And we've been building relationships both with rugby league journalists, but also across Rochdale. It's important that we get more coverage in the town as well, with Rochdale Observer and Rochdale Online, I think, giving us more coverage over the beginning of the year. Obviously, the season never really got going due to COVID, so I'm hoping to keep that momentum going when we do get going again. The other things that we wanted to focus on were obviously keeping the fans informed, which goes without saying. That's a given, and that's a fairly obvious one. But also promoting the club to maybe lapsed fans and hopefully to a new audience through not just through the coverage, but through increased social media activity across all channels. And I think we've been able to do that. As I said, you can see there from some of the stats that there's a tremendous improvement and huge increase in attention that the club's getting. But I think also importantly, which is not something that's maybe widely understood, is that our central funding is also dependent on an ROI model from the RFL, which they're measuring a lot of our statistics. So it's really important that we not only follow the club on the social channels, but there's also 1 or 2 other things that we can do to improve our chances of getting more funding in the future. Obviously, it can have an impact on how much funding we actually get. The main areas there are the things that the ROI model focuses on is Facebook followers and likes, Twitter followers, Instagram, and page views to the website. So it's really important. We are still producing content even though we're not playing rugby. And if you can go to the website, even just visiting the website and viewing different pages is actually helping the club, because all of them statistics help us with our ROI argument to the RFL. Another area that we're kind of focusing on now as well, we've just relaunched a newsletter. So I'd encourage everyone to sign up to the newsletter, which is available if you go onto the homepage, scroll down towards the bottom of the homepage, there's a registration form there. But also, if you've already done that, try and convince as many of your friends and family to do that as well, because the data and the size of our data and the growth in that data is also part of the RFL ROI model. So it's really important that we get those numbers up and drive them up throughout the season, even if we're not, you know, while we're not playing, it's particularly important. And then another area where we definitely have been struggling is around getting people to sign up to our league. And I think speaking to people, a lot of people seem to think they've got to download an app, which there is an app, but that's not essential. I think the easiest way of supporting the club with that one is to go to the website. We'll post a link following this later on to make it easy. You can go to the RFL website, the Our League website, and just register there. Make sure that you tick the box to say that you're a Rochdale Hornets fan. And again, that's one of those things that if you can get your family and friends to register as Rochdale Hornets fans, that's really going to help us convince the RFL that we're worth investing in, basically. So in terms of the approach that we're taking at the moment, one of the things that we're looking to change is definitely link up a little bit more with producing content now for the foundation. So, and as Tony mentioned, we're linking up with promoting all of the hard work that they're doing in the community. We're also looking at ways that we can bring in more insight into the playing staff, but also the ladies team and the wheelchair team, which is an important part of Rochdale Hornets family. And we're kind of trying to bring them together and make it more consistent so that we've got a joint approach across the board. In terms of the things that you can do to help, as I've already mentioned, I think the key thing is get as many people as you can to follow us on social media, particularly on the areas that are being measured, which is Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We have got a YouTube channel as well. That's not part of the ROI argument at the moment, but I would strongly recommend that you get all your friends and family to join us on them platforms as well, and also interact. Engagement's critical. So a lot of this, where you're seeing impressions improvement on that slide there, and the visits improving, a lot of that is because of the engagement that we're getting now, where whatever it is, whether it's just liking a Facebook post, sharing a Facebook post, retweeting, or having a bit of banter with the media team through any of them platforms, that's all that is helping to raise awareness of the club. And then obviously, as I've mentioned before, I think the big one for us is registering for both the newsletter and for the Our League website. So if you can register yourselves, friends, family, whatever it takes really, just to get our numbers up, that would be really helpful. And I think that's it from me. Don't know if anyone's got any questions on any of that.
Doesn't appear to be any at the moment, Richard. So we'll move to questions around any sections, if anybody's got any. I'll kick off. We've had one from Jim Stringer, who, for everybody that's listening online, I'll read out first. Can I direct this one to Andy? How will the distribution of the £16 million from the government affect the club? How much are we likely to get? And are there any conditions attached to it?
Yeah, well, first of all, good evening, Jim. I think in respect to the 16 million loan, and we have to be clear, it's a loan from the government. It is a loan. So I think the initial understanding that we've got as a club is that any funds that distribute to the clubs and throughout the sport will be on a loan basis. So obviously, while, you know, with the new vision and the way we're approaching things, we're not overly keen to be adding to the club's liabilities or borrowing money. So we see very much the way forward, as the guys have explained and as Tony explained, as us being masters of our own destiny, generating our own revenue and riding this storm with a sustainable model that we can all contribute to. Obviously, we don't know what's ahead, and it'll be great to have a facility there if needed. The terms are not clear yet from the RFL, but it's fantastic for those who may not be as fortunate as ourselves at the moment and may need some instant support. I think there's going to be some urgent relief for those who need it. But in response to the question, really, it's not something that we're going to be looking to extend our liabilities and loan money at the moment, but certainly we'll be keeping an eye on it, because we are ultimately suffering, as Tony said, we're suffering losses on a week-to-week basis. If worst case scenario, the season was to be cancelled, obviously there's a loss of all our income for the year. So, we can't rule out having to go to the RFL for some support and utilising the fund. But as it stands at the moment, we want to be masters of our own destiny, not really add to the club's liabilities, because ultimately, when we get out the other side, the money would have to be paid back. So, we'll treat that as a last resort, I think.
There's a thanks there, Andy, from Jim. Are there any other questions from our online community? Just got a question in, open this one to the panel if somebody wants to take it, from Dave Bulcock. Can the club push the wheelchair rugby team a bit more? Seems to be being forgotten, but it's an important part of the Hornets family.
Yeah, I mean, I can take this one. That's definite. It's not been forgotten. We are linking up, as Tony mentioned. Tony and I have joined the foundation as trustees. We're getting to understand all the different parts of the work that's going on in the community. And I think both, as I mentioned, the ladies team's getting a bit of a focus at the moment, but the wheelchair team is also on the agenda as part of what we're going to be promoting. We want that joined up approach really to our comms, and particularly now while we're not playing, but we've got a plan that covers, not, like I said, all parts, not just about the first team, not just about the first team players, but about the wider community as well. So it is something that we're picking up for sure.
Thanks for the answer, Richard, and thank you, Dave, for the question. We've had a few more hands go up. We'll start with Adam Clark, who wants to come in and ask a question. Adam, you should be able to direct that question to the panel.
Yeah, evening, gents. Andy, this is one for you, mate. With the season only just starting, is it more likely for the season to be carried on to 2021 rather than cancelled?
As we spoke about earlier, there's a number of options being discussed at the moment. I think the preference would be, certainly from a Super League perspective, to get back playing as soon as possible and conclude the season. Obviously, to in the first instance, ensure that we're meeting the demands of the broadcast contracts, etc. But from the lower levels, obviously at the moment, if it is behind closed doors, there's a lot of protocols and potentially headaches to navigate through that. So it's still unknown, Adam, to be honest. I think our preference would be to understand whichever way it's going to be. We just want to understand sooner rather than later, so that whatever the outcome, if it's going to be in 6 weeks, 8 weeks time when we're starting, or whether we're scrapping it and starting again next year, we just want to know so that we can plan accordingly and at least there's some clarity,
Yeah, just want to come back in on one point. I don't know whether you've seen in the football world, the decisions with ending the season are a lot more disjointed than they have been in other sports. Are we more likely to see in Rugby League the same decision go from Super League down to League One?
I think there's certainly one of the positive things that's come out of this situation has been a real sort of unity between all levels of the sport. And I think there's an understanding from our level at League One and Championship that it is important that Super League will be the first ones to get going potentially, and should be, because obviously the way the sport's funded and the money from Sky TV, they essentially buy the rights and they screen Super League, don't they? So in order for us to tick the boxes and meet the the demands of the contract, Super League needs to get going first. And there's a recognition of that across the board, because all our money is dependent upon that. But certainly what I'd like to see really is a clear strategy of how we, even if it's a sort of traffic light scenario whereby we can get, the green light will mean Super League starts, and then we can phase the other leagues back in. But as I say, worst case scenario, if it was to be that we can't restart this year, I think from Matt's point of view, when I have had a brief conversation with him and from the board of directors and everyone in the club now, we just want to know what the scenario is going to be so that we can plan accordingly.
Cheers, Andy.
No worries, thank you.
Just another question coming in from Ian. Ian, you should be able to ask that question now.
You okay? Come here. Andy, you said a few minutes ago this loan from the Rugby League, there's not clarity on how it's going to come. Have they indicated whether it's interest bearing or would it be an interest free loan, and over what period? Have you any idea?
We're waiting on the terms. We sat on a call on Friday with the RFL and the other stakeholder clubs, and we're waiting on the terms and some information coming out in respect of that. So we're not quite clear. What was made clear is if anybody was in immediate distress and immediate, obviously in a critical condition and needing funds straight away, then they could directly get in touch with the RFL and communicate on a one-to-one basis. Now, I'm treating that as, fortunately at the moment, we're not in that situation. So yeah, we've not pushed to understand what the terms are, because we want to treat borrowing money and loaning money as a last resort. Really, we've been quite clear that we're trying to build a sustainable model, and a model that's a model that stands on its own 2 feet, and we wash our own face and budget properly. So that's not really, it may be the last resort for us, that we need to look at that dependent upon the outcomes. But at the moment, we're not really pushing to go out and borrow any money.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem.
Question from Andrew Riley.
Yeah, good evening, gents. What is the absolute very best way for fans to support the club between now and the restart of any season?
I think I'll pass Tony over on that one, if that's okay.
Yeah, good evening. Thanks for the question, because it's as I mentioned in my piece, it's extremely important. I think there's the obvious ones where it's trying to rally friends, family, with regard to support our initiatives like lottery and the squad builder, which they're the foundation ones, if you like, of support. But I think also it's keeping the club aware and alive in the wider community, and like Richard was saying earlier, truly and real engagement with the social elements of the club are going to be important, because we've started and will continue to build a real good perception about what the future of this club's all about. And when we come out of this, we need to be still on that high where we can still engage people to come to the games and engage with the club as they were starting to do just prior to stopping. So that's especially from a town perspective of and the community of Rochdale, there's much of that within friends, family, and actually it's difficult within the commercial areas. But as we do start to come out, reinforcement of that would be key. And from me, I'd really like any supporters, sponsors that have got any of those contacts that we can go and speak to around people who might just want to understand what we're doing, corporately as a club, because that's something that's going to really, really underpin next year, irrelevant of what happens in the next few months. And we're keen as a board to try and get 2021 secured in all aspects within the next 2 to 3 months, and that includes our sponsors for next year. And that'll be asking upon some people to take some commitments. We're not really knowing what that is. But likewise, this year we've had a good support from sponsors of all levels, as well as the fans, and the commitment that they've shown over the course of the last few weeks when they've been asked how will they support the club over the next few months, and it's a resounding, and 100% support, financially, as much as supporting any media pieces. So I think it's just a reiteration of, if people can go into the lottery and into the squad builder, that starts to build that monthly knowledge that there's a flow of cash coming into the club, and then that awareness piece, media wise, and then any contacts that you think the club could follow up, that could try and support and help the commercial build, not just for the balance of this season, whenever that may be, but into 2021, would be very well received. And we want to try and get into as many businesses as possible. This new thing that I have been introduced to, of Zoom, over the course of the last few weeks, I don't think I'll ever have to leave an office again, so we can have these meetings whenever. So if anybody can offer help, contacts or anything, please reach out. More than happy to have a one-to-one conversation with anybody and follow any of those up. But I really appreciate that question, because that's a very, very important one to everybody, as well as what we're doing at a club, player, foundation level. While we've not twiddling our fingers, I'm sure we're all busy doing things at the moment, but anything that you can do along those aspects. But most importantly as well, that auction, reiterate the auction, because we want all those going. I appreciate the question.
Cheers, Tony.
Thanks very much, gents.
Cheers.
Just a final call for any more questions from the audience. No, I'd just like to thank our panelists, Andy, Richard, Craig and Tony. Did a fantastic job this evening. I hope everybody enjoyed the webinar delivered by Rochdale Hornets tonight. If anybody has any further questions and thoughts on the webinar, we'd love your feedback. Please email us at info@hornetsrugbyleague.com. And as Tony finished with his piece, don't forget the auction, don't forget the lottery, and don't forget the squad builder. Thanks and good evening to everyone. Cheers.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you very much. All the best.
Thank you.
Bye.